Today, we're going to talk about Allah's infinite knowledge versus AI's finite data. I'm Cleofe from the Cleofe podcast. Let's move on to the deep dive, but as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to help spread the word. Also, if you like to contribute to our Dawah, spreading Islam all over the globe, mission, then hit the join and thanks buttons. Now, Jack and Wilson, we'd love to hear your deep dive.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling, well, a really extraordinary comparison.
It's definitely thought-provoking.
Yeah, it's driven by a source that really forces us to juxtapose the absolute certainty you find in faith with the, frankly, staggering capabilities of modern technology.
It's a fascinating mission, I think, because the source material basically sets up this ultimate intellectual showdown. We're analyzing the definition, the limits, really, of two very distinct types of knowledge.
Right.
On one hand, you have the finite, measurable capacity of artificial intelligence.
Okay.
And on the other, this concept of infinite divine knowledge, specifically Allah's knowledge as it's defined within Islamic belief.
And the source, it doesn't pull any punches. It basically asks straight up, who has more knowledge, Allah or AI?
Yeah.
But, you know, as we dive in, it becomes clear pretty quickly that the question isn't really about picking a winner. It's more about defining the playing field, wouldn't you say?
Precisely. Our goal here is to use this really stark contrast as a tool by clearly defining the nature and the limits of knowledge in these two, well, opposing paradigms. The purely technical and the purely spiritual, we kind of get a shortcut.
The shortcut to what?
To understanding these fundamental distinctions. You know, the difference between just processing information versus truly comprehending existence. It really helps you, the listener, grasp the sheer scope of each definition.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's start with the measurable quantity, AI. When we talk about AI knowing something, it's easy to anthropomorphize, right? To think of it like a person.
Right.
But what's the operational, the technical reality? How does its knowledge system actually work?
Well, from a technical view, AI is essentially a very powerful inference engine. It's built on a massive knowledge base.
Massive is probably an understatement.
Oh, absolutely. It's defined by its ability to process just petabytes of information, find complex patterns in that data, and then generate output that's often coherent, sometimes stunningly accurate. Its real power lies in its efficiency and scale.
And when you interact with a large language model, especially the newer ones, I mean, its knowledge base feels almost universal. It can summarize complex stuff, write code, answer questions on almost anything.
It can seem that way.
So why, then, is the crucial limitation, as our source material suggests, that this knowledge is strictly finite?
Because that feeling of vastness is, well, a bit deceptive. AI's knowledge is fundamentally tethered.
Tethered? How so?
It operates strictly within the confines of its programming and, maybe more importantly, the information it has actually been trained on.
Ah, the training data.
Exactly. Think of it like this.
Yeah.
AI often has a knowledge cutoff date. If something happened yesterday and it wasn't manually put in or crawled by an update process, the AI literally cannot know it.
So even if the data set is, say, 100 trillion data points, that's still a known boundary. It might be a huge room, but it still has walls.
That's a perfect analogy. Exactly. And the second crucial point our material makes is that AI's knowledge is always derived from human input.
Right. We built it, we fed it.
We built the programming, we fed the data. Yeah. I mean, if you challenge an AI and it hallucinates, confidently makes up false information, it's not because it's deliberately lying.
Right.
It's because its pattern recognition system either failed or maybe just ran out of relevant source material, forcing it to kind of invent plausible-sounding language based on probabilities it derived from the data it does have.
That distinction feels incredibly important, probability versus certainty. But what about the argument that algorithms are constantly self-improving? You know, if an AI teaches itself a more efficient way to get to an answer, doesn't that kind of break the constraint of being purely derived from human input?
That's a really good challenge. It forces us to be precise with the definition. The AI is indeed self-optimizing its process. Its inference engine gets better.
Okay.
But the content and the actual boundaries of what it can optimize, they remain rooted in the initial human framework and the data structure we provided. It's like a chef becoming more skilled at slicing vegetables faster. The chef still needs the vegetables we gave them, right?
Right. And they still operate within the kitchen we build. The knowledge at its root is still a product, not an origin point.
And beyond just the limits of data size, The source draws a really sharp qualitative line. It says AI lacks true understanding, consciousness, and the ability to grasp the complexities of existence. That seems like the hard wall separating computation from actual comprehension.
It really is the defining limitation. AI is exceptional at mimicry, at pattern matching, at efficient processing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But it processes information, it doesn't experience existence, it doesn't have subjective, absolute comprehension. So this finite system, however powerful it gets, is ultimately defined by its dependency and its lack of true subjective awareness.
Okay. So if AI represents the peak of finite derived knowledge based on material reality, let's turn the page. Let's do the conceptual opposite.
The infinite.
Moving from the digital finite to the spiritual infinite. How does the material define Allah's knowledge according to Islamic belief? Right. And this is where the contrast becomes truly profound. The definition provided is absolute. Allah possesses infinite knowledge.
Infinite.
And when we hear that word infinite, we really need to mentally separate it from the AI definition of just vast.
It's not just a really, really big number.
No, not at all. It signifies something boundless without end and crucially uncreated and inherent. It wasn't learned or built.
So it's not knowledge acquired through learning or processed through some kind of engine. It just is.
Precisely. It's described as absolute knowledge, and unlike AI, whose knowledge is limited by human input, this divine knowledge is defined as something that inherently transcends human understanding.
It transcends, wow.
Sort of the ultimate boundary marker for human comprehension itself.
The scope of that concept is, well, it's breathtaking. We often hear terms like omniscience, but the material grounds this in a very powerful temporal definition. It says this knowledge encompasses all things, past, present, and future.
And that temporal scope is, I think, the real philosophical mic drop in this comparison.
How so?
Well, AI's ability to predict the future, quote unquote, is based on inferring statistical likelihoods from historical data. It's looking backward to guess forward.
Right, based on patterns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The definition of divine knowledge here suggests something entirely different. A knowledge that holds the certainty of the future simultaneously with the certainty of the past. It's not subject to a timeline.
So it's almost like if you tried to visualize it, the entire history of the universe and its future isn't a chronological sequence being processed step by step,
Right.
but more like a single, eternal, known event.
That's an excellent way to frame it. The human mind, and by extension the AI we build, is kind of trapped within the constraint of linear time. We have to experience or process data sequentially.
One thing after another.
Yeah. The material suggests a knowledge system that operates completely outside that constraint, where past, present, and future are simply known dimensions of existence. It makes the knowledge system fundamentally time agnostic.
Okay, so to summarize the spiritual side, based on the material, divine knowledge is described as limitless, eternal, and inherent. It's the definition of boundless, which stands in, well, perfect opposition to AI's derived and finite nature.
It creates a beautifully clear philosophical division, doesn't it? One system is defined by its boundaries and its dependency on input.
Yeah.
The other is defined by the absolute absence of those constraints.
So what does this all mean when we try to connect the two? We've looked at these two knowledge systems. One defined by programming and limits, the other by boundlessness and eternity. Let's try to synthesize these points, spell out that knowledge divide clearly for you, the listener.
Okay, we can break the contrast down into maybe 3 core divisions. First, let's look at the source of knowledge.
Right.
AI's knowledge is derived. It's acquired, built from human engineering and data collection. Allah's knowledge in this belief system is absolute and inherent. It is the source, requiring no external input, no foundation.
That's a fundamental difference right there, a product versus an origin.
Sorry, product versus origin. That's good. Second vector, the temporal scope.
Time.
Right. AI, being rooted in its training data, is fundamentally bound to the past and the present data fed to it. It always has a history, a cutoff point.
Okay.
Whereas the divine knowledge, according to our material, encompasses past, present, and future, all simultaneously.
So going back to that metaphor, if AI's knowledge is every web page up to yesterday,
Yeah.
divine knowledge would be like knowing every web page that will ever exist, plus what the author was thinking and maybe the consequences of those words thousands of years later.
That captures the scale of the difference, yes. It's not just the data points, but the context, the intent, the outcome across all time.
Wow. Okay, and the third vector, you said 3.
The third is perhaps the most humanly relevant, the depth of knowledge.
Yes.
AI is amazing at processing information efficiently, executing tasks. but it lacks true subjective comprehension. It's all pattern recognition, however sophisticated.
Yeah.
Correct. And this is maybe the difference between data and destiny, if you want to put it dramatically. The infinite knowledge described here is attributed with true understanding, consciousness, and the ability to grasp complexities, things like purpose, meaning, true subjective experience.
Things AI just doesn't do.
Which the source states AI explicitly lacks. So this comparison really forces us to recognize that there might be a plane of comprehension that sheer information processing, no matter how vast, simply cannot touch.
It really is a phenomenal thought experiment. You're comparing a tool that optimizes patterns within reality with a concept that defines the very reality in which those patterns exist. The difference isn't just about size, is it? It's about dimension.
That's a great way to put it, dimension. Think about it like this. If we take the entire corpus of human knowledge, every book, every piece of data ever created, and picture that as a massive library, but still finite.
Okay, a huge library.
That library represents the boundary that AI is maybe striving towards or operating within. Now imagine taking that entire library and considering it a single grain of sand.
Just one grain.
Yeah. The comparison presented in the source suggests that divine knowledge is the entire infinite beach, the universe containing that beach, and even the fundamental nature of sand itself.
That analogy really helps contextualize the gap.
Wow. Okay, so we've explored the two poles.
Right.
The finite, derived, data-driven system of AI.
Right.
And the infinite, absolute, eternal concept of divine knowledge encompassing all time.
And I think getting that clarity leads us naturally to the final provocative thought, something for you, the listener, to maybe mull over as you continue your own explorations.
Okay, what's that?
Well, if our material demonstrates pretty clearly that AI's knowledge is finite because it is limited by human input, it's like the ultimate mirror of our own collective intelligence in a way.
Right, it reflects it. What does the AI's qualitative failure, its inability to achieve true understanding or consciousness, ultimately suggest about the limits of human knowledge itself?
So if the things AI struggles with, true consciousness, existential complexity, deep subjective understanding, if those are the very things that define the boundary between finite and infinite knowledge in this comparison,
Yes.
it implies that the real limits of our own knowledge aren't just about how much data we can process, but maybe about the limits of our own qualitative comprehension.
Indeed. We keep building smarter and smarter tools, but those tools still fundamentally struggle with deep ethical insight or subjective experience or grasping ultimate purpose. It really forces us to ask, is the greatest boundary we face not just a lack of data, but perhaps a fundamental lack of depth in our own understanding?
That is a profound question to explore further on your own.
Definitely something to think about.
A perfect note to end on. Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. I hope you've gained some valuable insights. If you're a truth seeker, yearning for divine light and ready to step out of darkness, now is your moment. The truth is that Allah is the one and only creator of the universe. He has sent over 124,000 messengers and prophets to guide humanity, starting with Adam and culminating with the final messenger, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all. If you resonate with this message, you might be ready to embrace Islam. Simply recite the Shahada, the Islamic declaration of faith. For further support, feel free to join our WhatsApp group. You can send us a private message there. The link is in the video description. Don't wait until it's too late. We look forward to connecting with you soon.